And we're back to talk about
Are we?
the
Did you click?
fourth agreement. The fourth agreement by Don Miguel Ruiz. Pablo, this agreement says always do your best. Have you always done your best?
I want to think that I have. You know?
Yeah.
I want to think that let's just say real quick, we started cracking up and laughing before the video got started, and I told you I needed a second, and you started the video. So we're having a good time, folks.
Well,
a really good time. Anyway, so the fourth agreement, doing your best.
always do your best.
Always do your best.
Always do your best. And it's super simple. It's so simple. Because, well, you would think doing your best is simple. But in the process of trying to achieve the best version of yourself, that might be complicated. Because like you said the other day, it's a process of constantly trying to improve. Constantly trying to learn and get better.
Right. If you look at Law 21, the 48 Laws of Power, it says dampen your, so it kind of contradicts the 21st law.
It says dampen your intelligence, right?
Right.
Play a sucker to catch a sucker.
Right. But those are power moves. That's why we always have to distinguish. These are power moves that you do in the corporate world, let's say, or in an organization.
Mm-hmm.
These
The four agreements
is up to self-betterment.
correct.
So there are
It's a
two different
self-improvement.
goals. So one could argue they really don't contradict each other. Okay? It's just whatever environment you'd find yourself in.
Right. Yeah, I think these are about living a good life.
Right.
Being in touch with, let's say, your roots, connected to nature and what's important and whatever that is to you. Because at the end of the book, he also says, strip yourself of any previous agreements.
Right.
Breaking the old agreements. You have to break them. Because we had made, in our mind, we had already set certain beliefs that were given to us as kids, culture, society. And these will allow us to find the better version of ourselves.
Right. One thing that I found interesting, because, okay, so the fourth agreement is do your best always. Always do your best. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I think he talks about is, the difference between this last agreement and the other three is that the word do is in there. And the word do implies action. So you have to take action. And so when you couple this agreement with, be impeccable with your speech, don't take anything personal, don't make any assumptions, you kind of like do a reprogramming of your brain,
Mm-hmm.
of your mind,
A rewiring.
a rewiring of your mind. This is for self-improvement. And then the way I look at it is you have this ground and you come through with a big old plow and you just remove the ground and everything so that you can drop new seeds and they can sprout up. That's kind of like what I'm thinking that the book is trying to do. Set a fertile ground for your mind and your brain and use these agreements so that you can allow for personal growth. And then he says, then you truly live your life. One would argue, look, I've been living my life, but this will give you a different insight.
Yeah, you'll be more connected with people.
And yourself.
You'll be more connected with yourself.
Right.
Yeah, you have to have that relationship first with yourself, and then you can flourish with other people. It's interesting that you talk about that plow.
Yeah.
Because soil needs minerals, and those minerals, if there's no regeneration, if they can get depleted.
Okay.
And
Oh
so
yeah, that's
you
right.
could be planting, and we talked about it. You had shared with me a while back. A tomato today, your normal tomato doesn't have the minerals
The
that
nutrition.
the
Yeah.
nutrition that they had 30 years ago, let's say, because
Correct.
the soil here in the United States or wherever they're planting those has been depleted, and they haven't maybe been able to fully um, replenish those minerals. And I know that I was taking that that class, Master Gardener class,
Yeah.
and they teach you that you have to put this stuff into the soil, these minerals. The soil has to have nitrogen. The soil has to have other elements. If not, your plant will not grow. Your
Or be healthy.
or be healthy.
Yeah.
And so, talking about that, you're kind of digging out the old stuff, and sometimes you have to put new soil.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important. You can't live with. Yeah, we all have, as our where we come from, we have idiosyncrasies based on the culture that we lived in and so forth. All you have to do is
Yeah.
you compare the Middle East to some Latin American country. Some of the culture is going to be different, and then some of the inner core values will be the same.
Sure.
They want the same thing that we do in terms of family. You want to have, your family around you. You want them to grow up and be successful, your children, and so forth. Those are the things that we all have in common.
Mm-hmm.
But there are certain other things that we're very much different in. So what does that mean? By doing this, you allow yourself to, by following these 4 agreements, I think that you create a fertile land. You get rid of your older habits that you think you may need to revamp.
Right.
It's like going through your closet and taking out old clothing, and putting new clothing in. It's you get rid of.
There's a famous song by Eminem
Oh yeah.
where he says, "I'm cleaning out my closet,"
There you go.
but he's saying, "I'm sorry, Mama, I'm cleaning out my closet," because a lot of those things he had in his closet were because of his upbringing with
Right.
his mother, and so it's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we need to do that. And in Robert Greene's The Laws of Human Nature, he also talks about that. You basically study why you believe what you believe. Why do you act this way? When someone says a certain word, why does that word sting or bother you so much? And then you can trace it back maybe to an event in your life.
Yeah.
And so the same thing with what Don Miguel Ruiz is saying here.
Right. He's talking about, in this one, right? Do the best you can. He emphasizes the action word, do it. Just do it. Because he says, you liberate yourself when you're doing something for the love of it, as opposed to doing something because you're going to get compensated for it, like in the form of money or any other type of compensation. So he says, do it for the love of it. That's very cool. Some people have to do things, for money, because
Sure.
you have to feed your family, right? So, but yeah, he puts a lot of emphasis on the action word, on the verb,
Yes.
get it done. On the other 3, they're extremely important too, but I felt like he's saying, this one complements, the last one complements everything. And it's for self-improvement, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. You know?
Also, there's pride in the work you've done, in doing your best. It's like, I think about it when somebody builds something and they're extremely proud of it. Like even I remember Abuelo Jose, my grandpa would drive by this one Jack in the Box that he helped to build, right?
Right.
And he always say, "Oh, we helped build that." You know, I think it was a sense of pride in the work that was done.
Right.
Or you look at a carpenter, or even like Ed, these statues, right? The Lamasu statues. There's pride in what he's done. They look good. It wasn't done cheaply. And when you do
Right.
something with your best, regardless of the outcome of what people giving you accolades or not, you know you did your best, and you can go to sleep at night knowing that.
Right.
There's pride in that.
Absolutely. I agree with it. And I think that these are pretty good. They're deep, you know? You really
Yeah.
have to sit down and think about each and every one of them. And they kind of like complement each other to a certain extent, because to be impeccable with your words, with your speech, just think about that for a second.
Yeah.
We're always thinking, you know, how many times do I say something and when it gets received by the other party, it gets interpreted in another way than what I'm trying to say. You know, so you have to be precise, impeccable with your words.
So impeccable, just Googling it, in accordance with the highest standards of propriety, faultless.
Uh-huh.
Something that is faultless. So they say a man of impeccable character. It's not liable to sin, it says in theology. So yeah, the word impeccable is powerful.
Well, sure.
And also where he says with your word. Your word is everything.
Yeah.
If you're not impeccable with your word, then what kind of life, right, are we living if
Right.
we're not impeccable with our word? So yeah, I think
I mean, they're deep. You don't make any assumptions, you know? Rely on data.
yeah,
You know, don't be offended by things, right? Don't
take things personally.
don't take things personally.
That
And
for
I'll
me-
tell you,
that
that
was-
was rough for me.
Yeah, that was the hardest one for me. Out of the four, that one I feel.
Right.
Because that's difficult to do in the moment.
It is, especially if you're dealing with family.
Sure.
You know, because you can
because-
apply this across the board. This is, you know,
Yeah, because you're emotional.
right.
Which you're going to be emotional when it's family.
What
Yeah.
can you do?
But always doing your best. I think also somebody's always watching. And whether
Right.
it's the grandkids, whether it's your kids, whether it's co-workers,
The business owner.
the business owner, other clients, people are always watching.
Correct.
And if you act as if somebody's always watching, whether you believe in God, or the universe, whatever, the higher power, you tend to do your best or a better job, right?
I mean, you have to, unless you live in a communist country, right? And, you know, I told a story where I would take a math test and my mom would tell me, hey, you can't get 100%. Because the fear was that if the communists found out that you were good at math, they would take you and ship you out to Russia and train you to become a fighter pilot.
And this is in Cuba.
This is in Cuba. So, you know, I
Yeah.
remember taking math tests and on purpose getting a few of the answers incorrect, because that's what my mom had brainwashed me to do. You know,
She thought for your
my
well-being.
sake. Yeah. And then there's a
Wow.
delicate balance, because you don't want to get too many wrong, because then they think you're stupid. So then they'll take you out of that class and put you in another class.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and I remember living under that regime. And so, what liberation can we have in this country where you can say, do your best always?
Right.
Swim the fastest that you can. Ride that bicycle the fastest that you can. You know, we were talking the other day about some of the strategy for the Tour of France is a guy will ride his bicycle in third or fourth position because the guy in first place is breaking the wind and the aerodynamics and all this stuff. So there's a lot of you know, strategy, but what liberation it must feel to just do your best at whatever you do.
Yeah.
You know, if you're picking up trash, pick it up the best you possibly can. Don't leave any little things around. You know?
You can tell when somebody
is proud of their work.
is proud of the work, and it doesn't matter what that work is. Like I'm thinking, like one of our buddies that I met, Jai, through he was working at a restaurant at the time, but he was just good at what he did.
Exceptional.
Exceptional. He was waiting the tables. And can I get you guys anything else? He made you feel like you're the only person in that restaurant. And we've had a bunch of other experiences like that. Several other people at different restaurants that give you that feeling.
And not everybody's like that.
Nope.
You know?
And some people believe you can train it. Other people I've asked, they think you just have it. I like to ask that question. Is that something you can train, or is that something you just have?
So what do you think? We've come across this before. So
Yeah.
what's your answer today? Can it be trained, or do you think it's in the DNA?
I think that certain things can be trained, but what I'm talking about specifically here, this ability to connect with people, I think you have to have something in you at birth, and then you develop it.
It's in your DNA.
I think it's in your DNA. It's your character at birth, and then you develop it.
You know, I think you're right. For example, yesterday I went to a restaurant, and this gentleman was delivering a burger on a platter, and he was walking like slow. You know,
You slow motion.
slow. I mean, you don't want to walk 100,000 miles an hour either, right? Because you can drop it, you can hit somebody, turning a corner, whatever. But he was just like, it took him forever to get to the table. And I looked at him and I got like, could you please move a little faster? And the burger wasn't for me, okay?
It got cold by the time it got to
Oh
the
my
table.
God, he's just chilling. And I'm thinking, wow, if he does everything like that, God bless him.
The opposite to that is, I remember I went to a restaurant once, and the person would come to the table and they would ask everything good, but before I answered, they were gone. It was so fast. I never went back there, but
wow.
I remember it was like everything good, and I'd be like, yeah, but can I get a water or something? But he was gone, and we were cracking up because he was just so quick that he wasn't waiting for a response. He was just kind of waiting for you to be everything, bum, gone. So anyways.
Well, that turns people off. I mean, if you ask a question, the least you could do is wait for a reply.
He would wait for you to begin the reply, and he was gone. You know, sometimes it's like, everything's great, but can I get some napkins or an extra a water or whatever? There was no chance for that. It was just so anyways. When somebody is doing their best, regardless of the task, they stand out and
Absolutely.
They get noticed.
Absolutely.
And what I was going to say is that you never know who's watching. Somebody might be there one day, whether you believe in fate, destiny, the universe, synchronicity, or luck. Somebody might be there one day and notice you and say, hey, you know what? I like what you're doing. We met a gentleman, buddy now, that was working in a import-export business for, it was an Asian company, and was doing a great job there. I think was there for over 10 years. But one of the clients noticed how good a job they were doing. And when that client decided they were going to open up their own thing, something along those lines, they said, I've seen the work you've done. Come with me and I'll give you this high position. And he did. So he didn't think that person...
And now he runs his own business.
Now he runs his own business.
And he's very successful. And so, doing the best you can, if you have that conviction, and that commitment to yourself, okay? Um, Somebody's gonna notice. You know what you just reminded me of? Again, I'm on social media a lot, for good or for bad. There was this short clip that I saw. I believe this is a teacher in China, okay? And he was unaware that he was being filmed, okay? And he was coming down the hallway, and he looked pretty beat up and down, down beat, stuff like that. And he stops in front of the door of his classroom, and he's got his book under his arm. And then he goes like this. He shook his head up, hair a little bit, right before opening the door to his classroom to meet his students. And then he went like this. Took a couple deep breaths and put a big smile on his face. And then, with a totally different attitude that, you know, he was tired, whatever, coming down the hallway, opened the door and walked in. And I think the caption said, to give your students the best of yourself.
Wow.
You know? That's, and he was, I think it's in China, he was a Chinese teacher, you know? And I thought, what level of commitment, you know, your standards, that you're going to let nothing stand in the way of you delivering the best class that you can for your kids, because that's what they're there for, you know?
No matter what else you have going on in your life. That's powerful.
You got to shut it off.
You know, I think that it is our duty to do that.
I think so
personally.
too.
I think whether you're in sales, because I personally would, that's what I would do, and that's what I would try to train people to do is whatever you have going on, you give that client the best version of yourself, because that's what they deserve.
Right.
Kobe Bryant, in an interview, you reminded me right now, he said there were days that I was sick, and I would show up on the basketball court, and the people that were on the stands had paid to see me, my best version, the best version of myself. They came to see Kobe Bryant. Whether I'm sick, whether I'm going through personal matters, whether I'm injured, not that they didn't care, but they came to see the best. That's what they paid for.
Right.
And that's what he delivered.
Right.
Every time.
Every day. Every time.
Day. And so, I mean, what greater example, you know, of like that teacher or of a Kobe Bryant.
Yes.
These are people that are top performers, and I truly believe that always did his best. I think Kobe Bryant, when he got on the court, that's all that mattered.
Right. At that moment, you forget about everything else. Otherwise, you're not there fully.
Right.
So
if your mind's on something,
you're not in your game.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the guy you took a picture with, the
Grover, Tim Grover.
Tim Grover. I think
he was the trainer for Kobe Bryant
and Michael
I think,
Jordan.
Jordan, maybe some other super
he brings out the best in them.
Yeah.
You got to do a mind hack, because I think Tim Grover says, look, sometimes these athletes are so enmeshed and involved in what they're doing. And you can take anybody. You can take a surgeon. You can take a welder. You can take somebody doing a sculpture. Okay, you can take anybody from any walks of life and apply this to it. He called it being in the zone. In order to get into the zone, okay, which is apparently a special type of space, okay, they have to be present in the moment and then transcend into that, where it becomes the best of them, okay? And then they can do no wrong. They'll shoot from 50 feet out and sunk it, you know?
A second on the shot clock, they'll score. Kobe Bryant's done that a bunch of times.
Right.
He did that a bunch of times, yeah.
And that, you know, not only, see, the commitment, this agreement, okay? Do the best you can always. Okay, that's a given, right? That's something that you must do. But then you're in there doing the best you can. You're in the present. You have obliterated all the other thoughts. And now you get to transcend into this, the zone that this guy was talking about. And that's where people excel. Whether you're a runner, you're bicycling, these guys that climb mountains without ropes, you better have laser focus and be in the moment, because there's no room for doubt.
Error.
Yeah, and for error, nor doubting yourself. You got to have this
even,
resilience.
Or even thinking, it's almost just instinctual at that point.
Oh. Yeah.
You can't, you're just, it's whatever comes to you. It's interesting because the only way to get there is by doing your best.
I would think so.
Like you're saying, the only way to get to that extra level of in the zone and transcending.
Right.
I've even heard it, people talk about it like you're in a meditative state. You're in another.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your mind is in another place, and you've been able to block everything out, and that's where you deliver your best. Yeah. I mean, I've done a couple recitals on the piano, and when you get up there, I would get nervous.
Of course.
Even though it was not a huge crowd or anything, it was family and little, young kids and stuff. But I would get very nervous, and what my teacher would say, Miss Prizer, is that once you're up there, you really don't read the music. So if you want the music up there, you can have it up there, but you're really just playing based on what your mind has already memorized. And the notes are there almost like a reference if you needed them, but you're not supposed to read the sheet music at that point. That's what she was sharing with me, and I remember getting stuck at the times that I would try to read the music. Instead, just play, and whatever comes to you. And if a mistake happens, you roll with it.
Yeah.
And no one notices sometimes.
Like Al Pacino says, if you get tangled, you just tango along.
Yeah. Incentive a woman. Yeah.
Yeah. So
you just tango on.
Yeah, and these books, the books, because if you read something and then you read another book and another book, you say, oh, this contradicts this and that. But if you look at the reason for the book, what are they talking about exactly? This is a book for self-betterment. And these 4 agreements could not be better. I mean, this guy knocked it out of the park. And if you read the book, there's a lot more detail than when we can cover, in the podcast.
Yeah, we highly recommend reading the book.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure.
But this is our take on it,
That's our take, our 2 cents,
And that's what, there was somebody that left us a comment on one of our other videos, and they were talking about the 48 Laws of Power, and they said, hey, I bought the book. It's very interesting, but it was very complicated. And so this video was helpful, I guess, to piece it together. But we recommend getting that book too.
Right.
Buy the book, read it, and then we're just sharing our take on it.
Yeah. And that's a nice comment. I'm glad that we were able to help a little bit.
Yeah.
With whatever we're saying. But all these things, at some point, you have to implement.
Absolutely.
I know Dan Pena is brutal, okay? But he says, you got these kids that they go to his castle or whatever, and they've read, 300, 400, 500 books, but they haven't done nothing, or they've done very little, because they're fearful of implementing, And at
paralysis
some point,
by analysis.
There you go. At some point, you have to jump into the pool.
It's the only way.
Yeah. And, welcome the mistakes, because the mistakes are going to be teaching spots, that you go through, and you learn from your mistakes. You actually, there's somebody out there that wrote a very famous book that said, hey, I've learned more from my mistakes than from my successes, And so at some point, you got to do it. And he puts the word do in the last agreement.
Yeah.
You know,
Take action.
take action. You
And-
have to do.
And I think like this is our great reminders for me on the book and the agreements. We have to remind ourselves. Eventually, I do think it becomes part of who you are, but a reminder is always good
Oh,
because sometimes we go astray. You know, it's like, oh, I was going to the gym 5 days a week and I fell off. It's okay, it happens. Just get back on. That's what my buddy Sean says. He's always saying, because I used to tell him, man, I haven't gone to the gym, this and that. He's like, all right, it's okay. You went today, right? And it's like you're getting back on it. It's not about feeling bad about not having done it. It's you took action today and you're getting back on.
right, right.
And focusing on that. So,
However, if you want to get to a certain point, then
you need
discipline and consistency
Absolutely.
must be there.
100%.
Otherwise,
100%.
you know,
Yeah.
you know, these guys that are bodybuilders, right?
You're right.
They're not going to get to that point if they miss a
Fall
day or
off.
two. If
No.
they fall off, they
No.
can't.
You're talking about the highest performers.
Right? It's unquite. Well, yeah, but how do you become a high performer?
Yeah. It's
You
true.
have to take the first step, right? And the first step can be, 10 miles away.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you keep going. I think of that Anatoly guy.
Yeah.
That I think he's from some province
East.
near Russia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's Russian, Anatoly. And he built his own weight set and everything
Oh, wow.
where he was, And so it's the drive. What drives the person? That's also another thing.
You're right. Yeah. That's kind of a cop out. To a certain
Well,
extent, it's a way of, feeling better about having fallen off, missed. But to get to the highest performance, to be the best version, you figure out something eventually that is consistent, like you're
Yeah.
saying, and you're disciplined.
Like Arnold. Arnold didn't miss a day.
Non-negotiables.
It's a
Like,
non-negotiable.
this has become a non-negotiable. But on the journey there, you make mistakes.
Right.
And I think that's what my buddy's talking about. That, hey, you made a mistake.
Right.
You just get back up and...
Get back up and keep going.
Yeah, but if you keep making that same mistake, that's where...
Well,
You're
there
not
was
getting
this
better.
guy that I listened to the other day, and he has interviewed billionaires. And he says that what a lot of they have certain characteristics in common, these billionaires, okay? But one of the things that they have in common is that they picked something that they were good at, not necessarily something that they liked, not necessarily something they were passionate about, but they picked something that they were good at and then stuck to that and apply persistence and discipline to continue to get better on whatever that is, okay? And that took them to this fertile land.
Very interesting.
Yeah, so
It goes against this idea of follow your
passion and this and that. He put that down very heavily.
Very
He says, you have some intrinsic
you gravitate
quality.
towards... Yeah,
that you're good at. Like, for example, some people may be good at the piano.
right.
Exploit it. Some people may be good at drawing.
Run with
Exploit it.
that.
And it may not be your passion. It may not be your passion. That's what he was saying.
Interesting, yeah.
And he said, this is what these billionaires have in common. That, and
That's an interesting take.
it's an
Yeah.
interesting take,
I think there's so much information, so many books, so many
Yeah.
ideas. It's like, find what works for you.
Find what works for you. You make your own decision. And Grant Cardone, it's right on the money when he says, hey, be careful who you take advice from.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of false prophets out there. And they're speaking, but they can't carry their own weight.
Mm-hmm.
So be careful who you... So at the end of the day, when you listen to all this stuff, you do your own self-assessment.
Correct.
Where are you in life? Where do you want to go?
Right.
Right? Where do you want to be? And live that to the highest level that you possibly can to be true to yourself. Well, that's what this gentleman is saying too. By going through these 4 agreements, you're going to reach that promised land.
Yeah.
You know? It's a cool book.
Heaven on earth, he calls it.
Huh?
Heaven on earth.
Yeah, it's a cool book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it back up so I could read it.
Yeah.
You know, because how long ago did you read this?
This was a gift given to me by my buddy in 2020.
Oh, okay, so it's not
2020.
very cool. It's a great book.
3 years ago.
Jeremy, right?
Yeah, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jeremy. Yeah.
Cool. We'll wrap it up there. We have the other agreements linked on the description for whoever wants to check those out. But this was a really cool refresher.
Good.
So
I loved it.
thanks.